Hello, welcome to Market Avenue. My name is Edward Nyakon. Today we're going to look at standards for chemicals and concrete, and this is being done by the Ghana Standards Authority and the German government. They say 5 to 8% of carbon emission comes through cement concrete, but today they've been able to come out with some organic admixture, that is with cooperation with some researchers in Nigeria. Together with German government officials, they've developed cassava peel that they can use to add to cement and produce concrete that will reduce the carbon emission in a sustainable manner. So we're going to look at that today with Wolfram Schmidt and then Emmanuel Obin from the Ghana Standards Authority. But before we do that, let's go straight to the business language platform and pick what we have for today. Abdul Rahman is standing by to walk us through the performance of the equity market for today, because today we've seen that the best presence in the market is very, very high. Hello, welcome back. Abdul, walk us through the performance of the equity market for today.
Thank you so much, Edward. The market indices slipped today as a result of a huge loss that we saw in one of the equities as at the end of the session. There were exchanges across 12 counters. There was a single price mover and it was in the decline, and that has resulted or weighed the market indices down. Let me quickly take you through the indices for today. In terms of the volume of shares that were traded, 1.5 million shares were traded, which translated into a value of 1.2 million Ghana cedis. In fact, the market was upbeat today, but as a result of the fact that there was no price mover in the positive, it has weighed down the market indices. The market capitalization as a result of the decline in the share price of Carl Bank that we saw today has dipped from 62 billion 276 million Ghana cedis to 62 billion 232 million Ghana cedis. If you want to know how the composite index also behaved as at the end of the session, it declined by 4.19 points as a result of the price decline that we saw. The financial stocks also, the index went down by 7.61 points, and it's still returning 1.54% in the positive for those that have invested in the financial stocks. But for those in the other equities on the crabs, the return is still hovering in the negative 8.56%. So Edward, if you ask me, that's quickly what transpired on the market today.
Thank you very much, Abdul, for that update from the Ghana Stock Exchange. Go for a short break. When we come back, we're going to learn how even a cassava peel can help you build your own house. Hello, welcome back to Market Avenue. Uma Schmidt, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
Good. Let me start with you. We're talking about standards for sustainable construction. If we say standard for sustainable construction, what exactly do you mean, Schmidt? And then I'll come to you.
Yes, well, we have identified that in the past we have been building without considering about the carbon emissions, about the energy requirement for exploiting materials, processing them and bringing them into a construction. And at the moment when we talk about energy reduction and carbon emission reduction, we always talk about the operation of a building. But we never see the materials that are required to be put into a building. And we have to see that Africa, all over Africa, we see that cities are growing tremendously fast. There is a city like Lagos or Kinshasa, they will have more than 80 million inhabitants in a couple of decades. That's more than the country where I come from, Germany. These cities have to be built, and we can see that 80% of all the cities that will have been built in 2050 are going to be built in the next 30 years. If we don't do that in a sustainable way, which means if we don't use materials which are clean, which are safe, which are greener than materials before, we will fail. We will not reach our climate goals in the future. So we have to be better, and we have to talk about concrete. People often don't like concrete because they say it's a grey material and it's boring probably, but it's the only material that we have available on that planet to build our cities and structures and infrastructures.
Ima, Ghana Standard Authority launched Building Code 2018. What has that got to do with building sustainably or doing construction in a sustainable manner?
So it's same thing.
Okay.
What we are trying to bring out is that the processes, the materials, the procedures that we use to come out with this production of our building materials and the building itself should have some set of requirements. And the building code set those requirements, and in setting those requirements, consideration is given to materials use, materials production in a sustainable way. So the processes that we employ that are being stipulated in the Ghana building code considers sustainable development in the construction subsector.
So you have a partnership with the German government. What does this partnership seek to achieve?
So simple, they have developed. So they have gone through the process from developing to the developed countries. They have a lot of expertise that we do not have. So we are sharing, and in that partnership, it's what we call technology exchange and transfer. So we are learning a lot from them. In research, they are up there. They have done a lot of research and we haven't. Standards development, they have gone through all the processes and we are just starting. So if you partner with them, we also hope to develop these standards, then we have to learn from them to make sure that we are doing the right thing without not committing any mistakes.
Without committing any mistake, you were talking to me about your partnership with other researchers in Africa in terms of admixture for concrete. Can you share a story with us?
Yeah, I think the partnership buzzword is really the right buzzword because, as Emmanuel said, there is a lot to learn from our expertise in research and also standards development. At the same time, we also have to learn a lot because we have been using cementitious materials and concrete for, let's say, 150 years more or less, always in the same way. And we don't see that today we need to change. And when we are going to change, we need new resources. Mm-hmm. All those resources that we have been using in the past, they were all very Eurocentric because all the standards were developed in Europe. And these industries that were delivering materials to the concrete industry and to the cement industry, they cannot deliver the same materials anymore. They are not sustainable. So we have to find solutions. And the African continent is so rich in resources and is so rich in minerals that can be converted into cement and concrete that it's a blessing to work with African researchers in a partnership to learn so much about both the mineral side, so how to replace cement and find some nature-based, clay-based solutions to replace the cement that we have been producing in the past without giving up on safety or on the standard that we are expecting. But we just use different materials, and at the same time we use the construction chemicals, and these construction chemicals are used to reduce the water content in concrete. So the more water I add to concrete, and that is a very important message, the lower the strength will be and the lower the durability will be. So the more water I add, the more I dilute it, and the shorter will be the lifetime of the structure.
Okay.
We have to reduce the water in concrete, and that can only be done by using chemical admixtures, because otherwise the concrete would be too stiff and no one can compact it. But with these admixtures we can have a very smooth concrete with a very low water content. And here in the past we used to use polymers, the chemicals that are based on crude oil as a foundation. But there are a lot of novel agents that have not been studied so far, which are based on sugar, so on what comes from plants. And this way it is possible to use, for example, the wastes of a cassava, just the peels and the starch which is adhered to the peels, to convert it into a water-reducing agent. And after that we still have the peels left over, and these peels, they can be converted into a cement replacement. And at the same time they can produce energy. So we've got 3 products from something which is a waste today, and that's amazing. And that's so exciting to be part of this partnership, and particularly for Ghana, but also with my colleague in Nigeria who has been the inventor of that cassava cement replacement. It's amazing to be part of that and develop that further into a material which is a high-tech material.
Wow.
It's not low-tech, it's high-tech.
Wow. Even high-tech cassava peel, have you tried, based on your partnership, have you tried something of that in this country?
So Wolfram and the co are leading the research in that area.
Okay.
We are also learning from them. Essentially what we want to do is that these innovations that we are trying to do are supposed to be done within the context of our standard. So we are going to be at the the receiving end. Whatever they have, we have to find a way of putting them in a standard requirement so that we can easily all be made available on the market. Without standards, we cannot do anything here. So we want to do this in that context so that we know what they are meant for and what they can do. All of them are defined as sort of regulations or rules in a standard document. Then we can use. So people can start producing it, and people can start using it, and like I said, as mistress in any form that they can. And it should be set out or spelled out in a document that we standard. And for in Ghana, it's only Ghana Standards Authority who has the money to develop standards and promote and promulgate the standards.
The issue of laboratories to be able to have the equipment required to do this standard. This partnership is helping to get those resources to be able to get a laboratory that is up to scratch. So
the partnership is looking at upgrade of our laboratory in terms of equipment and capacity. Then capacity development for the staff. The scientific staff who will be doing the work in the laboratory. So both ways. So we are learning. They are transferring technology to us, and will help upgrade our laboratories and train our staffs, laboratory staff, so that we can do the testing that's required for that particular invention.
Schmidt, the cassava peel thing, I'm still interested in that because it's a total solution. Yeah. Because we throw cassava peel away. Yeah. But together, you said the inventor is passed on to eternity. He's dead, Nigerian. But you talk about high-tech technology. Have you done something, built a house or built something out of that?
That's the most critical thing, because if you want to invent something, people are always skeptical, and they will always ask you, what about the durability? Do you know how the material behaves in 30 years or so? Certainly, if we have just invented something, it's impossible to know what's going to happen in 30 years. But we can understand the chemistry, and we know which oxides are in this mixture, and we can predict what is going to happen. We can also predict there will be challenges. And therefore, we have to bring it into a pilot structure to make it tangible for the people. And I was so lucky that in 2018, together with the successor of the inventor of the cassava concrete, it's Dr. Kolawole Olonade from the University of Lagos, we both were awarded with the German African Innovation Incentive Award. And that gave us the money to build a house made of cassava concrete.
Wow.
And this house has just been finished on the campus of the University of Lagos. But the technology to process all this and bring it into a cement replacement form, we have also developed here in partnership with the University of Ghana.
Oh, okay.
So there are these kilns that are required to produce that. They have been built in the past years on the campus in East Legon with Professor David Dudu from the University of Ghana. So it's amazing work. But we have to make it tangible. We have to show the people, look, it is exactly the same that you had before. The only difference is we are not extracting it from a rock, or from a mineral processing, but now we are extracting the same chemicals just from the plant, for example. That's all.
Wow.
And people have to believe it, and therefore we need the standards, first of all to listen to what comes up new, but then also to regulate it so that everybody can use it and not just abuse it or use it in random form.
The standards, the building code, have you started deploying or started using it to ensure that right things are done in a construction firm in Ghana?
Okay, so the building code is in the bosom of Ghana Standards Authority, but it was something that was created by Ministry of Works and Housing. You know, in our country, works and housing are in the domain of Ministry of Works and Housing. The implementers generally for the building code is the district assemblies, those who give the permit for building to be constructed. So we develop the standards, we are promoting the use of the standards, and we have outline training programs for the district assemblies to train them how to use the code. It's ongoing, but officially, I have not heard any district that is using the requirement of the code. But the code came to be because we saw a problem in our industry, in general of our construction or building in the industry. So we are still looking at fixing the problems with the code. Okay. But then there should be what we call political will. Now a lot of things are happening that we do not really have control as we sit in Ghana Standards Authority. Because if you want to put up a structure, your building, you have to go to one of the assemblies where your plot is situated to go for a permit. So they have to, a committee sits, they have to review the drawings, structural drawings, architectural drawings that we have, and decide whether it fits a certain requirement before they give you a permit to construct. Those requirements are what is spelled out in the building code. So we believe that if you make such an application, they should use the requirements of the building code. That we don't have a control. Okay. Now, once they give you the permit, what we have control over is the materials that is used for construction. We are doing our best to regulate it. So if you come to cement, we are fully regulating cement production and marketing in our country. When it comes to wood or timber, we are trying. We are not yet there. But for material like roofing sheets, reinforcing bars, we are. We have just have a conformity assessment program that we're going to deploy for the ready-mix concrete plants, those who are producing concrete in the commercial quantities, and therefore we may, by extension, have a conformity assessment program for the aggregates. That's the one product that they use in producing concrete apart from cement. So this is, from our point of view, what we are trying to do. But to use the requirement of the code per the procedures of processes, the district assemblies are supposed to do that.
Smith, sustainable waste is what SDGs is promoting what we're talking about. And if we are able to adopt some of this organic technology you're talking about, how will that help in reducing carbon emission in our part of the, and by extension, the world at large?
Significantly. I mean, you have to assume that the biggest contributor to carbon emissions in concrete is cement. So the cement, one thing is it's a very high energy process. It requires 1,450 degrees Celsius to be converted into cement clinker. But what is even worse is the chemical reaction, because you convert calcium carbonate into calcium oxide, and what comes out is CO2. So every kilogram of cement clinker that we can save is more or less a kilogram of carbon emissions that we can reduce, more or less. I mean, it's a little bit less. And therefore, whenever we can replace, let's say, 20% of cement in concrete and blend it instead with cassava peel ash, with calcined clay, with some other reactive materials that we can reduce exactly these 20% in carbon emissions at the end of the day. So, and that is so important, because concrete is more or less half of everything that human beings produce. There's nothing which is consumed more than concrete but water. So if we can only reduce 10% of this huge amount, we can already step far into the future. And we have to change. We have to also change the standards to a certain extent. We have good standards, that they are very well established, but also in Europe we have reached a level where we cannot innovate anymore because the standards are too tight. We have to develop standards that can look at the future and predict what will be required by the people in the future. And in the past we looked at at safety, we looked at durability, we looked at cost, but we never really looked at the people. And we have to start developing concrete and construction technologies that put the people into the center, so that we get more and more circular, that we already consider what is happening when the building will be teared down. And that has to be also part of the standards in the future. I'm absolutely convinced of that. And here I believe that in Europe we can learn much more from Africa that we can give from our experience.
So, this partnership, how long is it going to run?
So we were having a discussion. I think Wolfram really enlightened us. We may have an extension up to 3 years. So we are looking at, it depends on how much we can benefit for the first year, then it will determine how long it should be. But for now, I think we can, as soon as we finish with this year, we may be likely to have been extended to next year, then probably the year after. So 3 years.
So someone in the village is a mason working and doing his normal mason work. He was watching us and asked himself, standards for construction in a sustainable manner. What does that mean to me?
It means a lot. You see, so these things are being deployed in a lot of ways. So first we started by the building code. The building code actually talks about the processes and the procedures, and actually also considers the practitioners. So Western Housing has already started. We have the Engineering Council that's outdoor, that is registered. I have two institutions that is registering these artisans. We have IET, Institution of Engineering Technologies, and Ghana Institution of Engineering. These institutions are actually registering practitioners in the industry. I'm a professional engineer, that's the class I belong, but there are people who belong to the artisanal class. So these are also being registered, and the extent to which they are registered is also to regulate them and to give a training. So as part of the collaboration, we are looking with BAM in Germany, is to equip staff of Ghana Standards Authority so that we'll be able to train some of these artisans in what we talk about sustainable development and construction.
Schmidt, that young man who is into construction, talking about the carbon emission, what has that got to do with his life? You were wondering.
Well, I think at the end of the day a lot, because when we talk about reduction of carbon emissions with the technologies that are available in the market, we also talk about reduction of cost. That's the point. I mean, using cassava peel ashes, for example, as a cement replacement also reduces the cost of the cement in the concrete. And I think that's the way how we have to step forward. You were addressing the informal business probably, which in many African countries makes out like 80 to 90%.
Exactly.
And these people typically do not really abide by the standards. So and one part of our project, besides also a gender equality involvement project, we are going to do exciting things. But one part of the project is also to try to find something which, at least in my mind, would be something like standards light, which are not as legally binding as a real standard, but which can give a recommendation also to the informal business how to act more sustainably, but at the same time more economically feasibly for them. And I think that's the way how we have to communicate everything, and that's the point. Cement is so expensive in Africa. It is dramatically expensive, and Ghana is even a blessed country. There are countries which are much worse in terms of cement prices. So when we can reduce the cement costs by a more sustainable solution, there's nothing better to do. And if we can communicate this, then this young man will also know why he's doing it.
Well, find what?
For me, it's good. It's good that the German government have also looked at Ghana in terms of standardization. Besides the construction industry in Ghana is a bit difficult because you don't have clear cut and the standards are not in the industry. So they are looking at helping us to establish standards in the industry so that everybody will know what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. And when we do that, I think it will help all of us. And one of the objectives is to make Ghana a shining example in the West African sub-region, and it's something that we hope we can realize.
Schmidt, you heard of our people have lesson watched, and we talked about the cassava peel as part of the administration for concrete. When are we going to see it in mass production?
Well, that's a very critical question, because I'm a researcher. So you see, I'm burning for developing sustainable construction technologies, but there is something. If you're a researcher, you are never good in business. So you can only communicate your ideas, and you have to try to find someone who takes over and makes it and converts it to business. I think we succeeded quite well to communicate that in the right way, also not in this, ivory tower, sophisticated way. We also created a cartoon to explain also to children and to family how the production of cassava concrete can work. You can see it on YouTube, and that hopefully helps to convince people, investors, those people who are brave enough to see the potential and take it over, because particularly when we talk about cassava, there are hundreds of alternatives like rice husks, like groundnut peels, like sugarcane bagasse, like maize cobs. We can all convert this into cement or cement replacement. And if someone sees this potential and takes it over, we are getting there. And there are challenges, certainly, to collect the materials, homogenize them, to bring them into a scalable dimension. But these challenges are all challenges we sorted out with other materials in the past as well. So I'm not skeptical that it will work. And we need these brave people to take over this and bring it into the real market.
I hope you're collaborating with industry players so that this gets the final, recipient, the consumers.
I think that's the most important thing, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We've been talking about standardization for sustainable construction in our part of the world, and we looked at the cassava peel as one of the organic admixture that can be added to cement to build. And my guest has been Manuel Obin from the Ghana State Authority, Wolfram Schmidt from Germany. Your institution is what's the name of the institution?
It's the Federal Institute for Materials Research and Testing, and that works under the German Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Actions. And that shows how important research is for Germany, because at the end of the day, in comparison to Africa and most African countries, Germany is a very poor country. We don't have resources. The only resource we are having is knowledge, science and technology. And therefore the Ministry of Economics is supporting us with this possibility to really do very high level research.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
So this is our wrap up on Market Avenue today. God willing, we'll come here tomorrow. So.